Welcome to today's Sovereignty. Thank you for joining us. My name is Magnus, and today we're joined by John Light for Q&A about all things zero. John Light, he's aka Litecoin. He's a product manager at Sovryn. Most recently, he's become a ZK Rollup Research Fellow with Human Rights Foundations and Startware. You can also catch him on podcasts such as The Crypto Conversation. Now, folks, if you enjoy sipping sovereignty, you'll know that I like to start things off with a little joke as an icebreaker. So, a frightened Bitcoin hodler calls a fellow investor and asks if he's worried at all about the volatility of Bitcoin these days. The friend replies that, in fact, he's sleeping like a baby. The frightened Bitcoin investor is amazed. Really? Even with all the fluctuations? Yep, I sleep for a couple of hours, and then I wake up and I cry for a while. You get it? Because sleeping like a baby? As always, I'm sticking to my J job. All right, so guys, if you want to ask questions, remember that you need to request to be a speaker. So go ahead and have questions, just request to be a speaker. While people are requesting, I'll start with questions that people submitted on Discord and anonymously. We got a whole bunch. From Discord, a person asks, if a mass liquidation event somehow leaves the protocol underwater, will these losses be socialized and incurred by ZUSD stability pool? Can you speak to the robustness of the protocol, and how prepared will it be to avoid this situation?
Yeah, so what happens is that, yes, the losses are effectively socialized, and the way liquidations work is that first the Zero protocol tries to use the stability pool to offset the debt from the liquidated line of credit. And if the stability pool can't service either part of or all of the debt that got liquidated, then the debt gets redistributed to every other line of credit holder on a kind of pro rata basis, according to the amount of collateral they have in the system. So if a trove gets liquidated and it's underwater, let's say, for every $100 in debt, it only has $99 worth of RPTC, then that's effectively a $1 loss that gets socialized across everybody who contributes to paying off the debt of that liquidated trove, whether those are stability pool depositors or other lines of credit if the debt gets distributed to other lines of credit.
All right, cheers for that, Light. We have an anonymous question that someone submitted. Shall it be possible to place zero limit orders?
I'm not sure how to interpret this question because Zero is not a trading protocol. It's a lending protocol. Yeah, I'm not sure how to interpret this question, but basically, the way that Zero works is that users will take their collateral, they'll deposit it into a line of credit, and then they will have this line of credit that they can draw from up to the maximum, or rather minimum collateral ratio of 110%. And all of those actions are performed manually. There's no kind of you set a particular amount and then wait for a price point to be reached before that executes or something like that. So there's no concept of anything that even resembles limit orders in the protocol or built on top of the protocol right now.
We do have another non-question here. It was asking, when your zero loan gets liquidated, is this partial to restore healthy margin or full liquidation?
It is a full liquidation. So Zero has a minimum collateral ratio requirement of 110%. And so as soon as your collateral ratio drops below 110%, the full line of credit gets liquidated. Mm-hmm. 0.5% of your liquidated collateral goes to whoever triggered the liquidation, and the other remaining collateral goes to either the stability pool or other lines of credit if it has to go through a redistribution. Yeah, so John, I'll add actually an additional detail to that last question. I think I completely answered the question, which was just about partial versus full liquidations, but in the course of my answer, I mentioned that the minimum collateral ratio is 110%. This is under normal conditions. However, the protocol also has a feature called recovery mode, which is designed to incentivize the protocol towards higher collateral ratios in order to avoid the kind of mass liquidation events that somebody asked about earlier. So recovery mode kicks in when the total collateral ratio, that is the total amount of collateral in the system divided by, or I should say the value of the total amount of collateral in the system divided by the total amount of debt, drops below 150%. And once recovery mode is activated, then any line of credit that has a collateral ratio that is equal to or less than the total collateral ratio can be liquidated. And so if the total collateral ratio is 149%, then any line of credit that has a collateral ratio of 149% or less will be eligible to be liquidated. And now, although it will be liquidated, only 110% of the debt, like 100%, 10% of the value of the debt in collateral will actually be liquidated. So the user doesn't lose any more collateral under recovery mode than they would under the normal mode, even though they would become eligible to get liquidated sooner than they would otherwise. So let's say you have, for the sake of simplicity, $149 worth of collateral and $100 worth of debt, and recovery mode has been triggered. The total collateral ratio is 149%, so you are eligible to be liquidated. You would lose $1.10 worth of collateral, but the remaining $39 worth of collateral that you have would just stay in your account, and you could withdraw it back to your address or deposit more collateral and use it to reopen a line of credit. But yeah, so even though there is a full liquidation that happens under recovery mode, you don't necessarily have all of your collateral liquidated. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. I actually didn't know that aspect. So yeah, we have our first live audience member on board here. Bitcoin King, did you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I just want to know more about ZUSD. I'm just trying to wrap my head around if we get a lot of people who are taking out loans, and there's a few people who are like, I'm not going to pay the loan off at all. I'm not just going to keep borrowing off my Bitcoin. There's going to be a lot of ZUSDs that are not getting paid back. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what's the backup with all this ZUSD getting sold off. Do you understand what I mean? Like, I'm trying
What
to
do you mean by the backup? The backup to what?
Well, ZUSD is getting sold to $1, right? Because it's like an IOU. Because you can't actually use ZUSD for payment. You have to use XUSD or Tether USDT. So you're selling that ZUSD for a stable coin. So that ZUSD has been sold. So there's going to be a lot of ZUSD getting sold and not a whole lot of people buying it. So I'm just trying to understand how, like, what keeps it stable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So first, it's important to notice that we have a proposal in the Babelfish community right now. It's under review in their community to add ZUSD to the XUSD aggregator. So rather than selling XUSD or selling ZUSD for XUSD, you could actually just deposit ZUSD into the XUSD aggregator and get XUSD. So there's not really any sell pressure on ZUSD per se. But to your question about how the peg is supported, even if there is, say, some sell pressure on ZUSD that's pushing the value down below $1, how does it hold its peg? And the primary mechanism for maintaining the price floor of about $1 is the redemption mechanism. So the Zero Protocol has built in a redemption mechanism that enables any holder of ZUSD to redeem their ZUSD for $1 worth of RBTC at all times, minus a fee. And the fee is variable depending on the amount that is being redeemed and the overall volume of redemptions within a given time period. So the fee starts at 0.5%, and it fluctuates depending on the redemption volume within a period of time. But this basically creates a price floor, because at any time the price of ZUSD dips below $1 so much that it becomes profitable to redeem ZUSD for RBTC, and then basically sell. So you would basically be like buying $1 worth of RBTC for, let's say, 98 cents or 98 ZUSD, because you could go onto the market, buy a bunch of ZUSD at a discount, and then trade it for $1 worth of RBTC. So you're like trading 98 cents for $1. And people are going to do that until the price comes back up to parity. And that's the mechanism by which the protocol is able to maintain kind of a price floor for RBTC or ZUSD. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. So hypothetically, what if somebody like a whale comes through and they're like, I have $5 million. I love this Sovryn protocol. I want to get a whole bunch of ZUSD, sell it, get my stable coin, Tether, whatever. Will that make a major impact to the Sovryn protocol because it's so small? And the reason why I'm bringing these up is obviously with Terra Luna and what happened with that. I just kind of don't want to see that happen with Sovryn. But because you guys are doing it backed by Bitcoin, that's probably almost impossible. I'm just trying to, understand the whole mechanics behind it.
Yeah. The Terra situation is, impossible is a strong word, but I would say it is technically impossible for a situation like that to happen with Zero because of the redemption mechanism. So the only way that could happen, and again, impossible is kind of a strong word. So like assuming that there's no bugs in smart contracts and vulnerabilities that are being exploited, that could not happen. What happened to Terra was like intrinsic to the system. There was no smart contract vulnerability. There was no hack. It was just the system working as designed. And that's what happened to Terra is just what happens to the system under a certain set of conditions. It's intrinsic to its design. Whereas with Zero, because of the redemption mechanism, once that arbitrage opportunity presents itself, somebody is going to take it.
Yeah, it gives an advantage for a lot of people.
Yeah. And we actually see currently in the Sovryn protocol, there are people who are running bots, at least 30 people who the core team is completely, we have no idea who these people are. They're just out there on the internet running bots, assisting with liquidations and arbitrage opportunities and other kind of, I don't want to call them hidden, but kind of behind the scenes profit generating opportunities, just because the money is there on the table for them to pick up. And I don't expect that to be any different with Zero. If an arbitrage opportunity presents itself, somebody's going to come along and pick it up. So, if that situation were to come to pass and somebody, fat finger sold way too much ZUSD, the price would dip below $1 momentarily, but the arbitrage gap would, pretty quickly get closed because the protocol offers the redemption facility for that to happen.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, Bitcoin King. Thank you very much for the questions. Illuminating for everyone, really. Yes, we'll continue on with some of the questions that people submitted anonymously. Again, folks, just requests to be a speaker if you want. I see a couple are coming in right now. So I'll ask this one first. Does Zero use an oracle to know what the price of BTC is to issue USD, and what safeguards are in place to prevent mishaps when this oracle goes down and malfunctions? I suppose you've touched on this a little bit, right?
I don't think I've talked about the price oracle yet, but I'm happy to take that question. So yes, in order to know what the current price of Bitcoin is to service both liquidations and redemptions, the Zero protocol uses two different oracle sources. One is the primary. It uses a primary and a secondary, and the secondary is used in case the primary stops reporting prices for more than 10 minutes. So if the protocol notices that the price has not been updated on by the primary, then it switches to the secondary. And the primary oracle is the money on chain oracle, and the secondary oracle is the RSK oracle that is run by, I believe that's IOV Labs. And it's important to note that these, at least the money on chain oracle, although it's called the money on chain oracle, it is not actually a centralized oracle that is run by a single team. Instead, the money on chain oracle aggregates price feeds that are being reported by multiple different nodes that are staking MOC, which is the native asset of the money on chain protocol. And I think they have 10, like they take the top 10 staking Oracle nodes, and then they aggregate those prices and medianize those prices, and then take the medianized value, and that's what gets reported to the Zero protocol. I would encourage anybody who's interested in digging into this and to just do a web search for money on chain decentralized Oracle, and you can read about how their protocol works. They also have a dashboard on their website where you can see actually which specific nodes are being used for the price reporting, how much MOC they have staked, what prices they're reporting, and all of that kind of what their uptime values are, all this kind of performance data. It's a pretty cool system as far as oracles go, in my opinion.
Yes, thanks for that. Yeah, I'll do a little homework there. Jay, you have the floor. Go ahead. I know you've been waiting.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so I guess I was going to ask regarding like the whole ZUSD and the interest for arbitrage. I guess, is it safe to say then that the mechanism will work as long as there's demand for Bitcoin, right? That's the overall underlying assumption. As someone is willing to get $1 worth of Bitcoin, then there will be, arbitrage will be encouraged, right? Is that a fair assumption? Is that one way to say it?
Not even necessarily. I mean, all you could be interested in is dollars. And
Okay.
this arbitrage opportunity is worth it to you, because what you can do is you can trade, like I said, as an example, 98 cents worth of ZUSD for $1 worth of RBTC, and you could immediately sell that RBTC for fiat, and keep the difference as profit.
Okay.
So even if you don't care about Bitcoin, it's still a profitable opportunity for you.
Okay. And then I know, like, are there plans in the roadmap to include something what's it called, like Keeper or like Kujira they had on Luna, in which people could
just
actually
around swapping
participate
to
on those arbitrage and
USD. So
liquidation
obviously with Liquidity,
opportunities?
right, you get LAUSD, you go to Curve, you swap it out to USD.
CFW, I think Jay was speaking. You can definitely hold your question until we're done, though. Yeah, so we'll be releasing an open source bot that anybody can run in order to participate in the liquidation process. I don't think we have a bot for the redemptions yet, because I mean this is a bit more complex, and you might need to hook it up to either a DEX or a centralized exchange in order to actually make the arbitrage work. But there will be an open source liquidation bot from day one that'll be available.
Excellent. A reference spec. And then you said the second oracle, the secondary, that's the RSK oracle?
Yeah.
Excellent. And I know that in the past, some systems have been exploited by flash loans. Is that also could be an attack vector or not, because the way of the sovereign system works as far as?
So Liquidity is not vulnerable to flash loan attacks.
Okay, excellent. Well, looking forward to Zero coming online, and best of luck. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Yeah, guys, remember, if you just want to speak, request to speak, and we'll get you up on here. In the meantime, we have lots of questions that people submitted. I'll go into the next one. So we have, it says here, I understand Zero is not being deployed as a mutable contract like liquidity was. How exactly is the smart contract update authorized on chain?
Yeah, so that's the premise of the question is correct. The original liquidity contracts that Zero is based on were designed to be immutable. So there was no upgradability, no governance of any kind. Really, all of the values are hard coded. Whereas Zero added upgradability so that the contracts could be updated as needed. And the governor, the owner of the contracts, who has the authority to update the contracts, is the sovereign bitocracy. So every smart contract update that gets proposed for Zero, whether that's just updating a parameter or actually updating the logic of the contract itself, will have to go through a SIP and be approved by sovereign stakers, SOV stakers, and sovereign bitocracy.
Yeah, so the next question was, will there be limits to the total amount of BTC a user can deposit into Zero protocol?
No limits.
All right, short and sweet. Got another one. It's how much of a risk is keeping more than 110%, but lower than 150% LTV? I see there is a risk safe mode, I believe, that could mean I get liquidated if I say have 120% LTV.
Yeah, so this question, it was referring to the recovery mode that I was talking about earlier. If the total collateral ratio drops below 150%, then recovery mode gets activated. And in that case, yes, basically the minimum collateral ratio increases from 110% to whatever the current total collateral ratio is, if it's 150%. And so, if the total collateral ratio is 140%, then that means you could get liquidated even if your own line of credit's collateral ratio is 140%. So it's hard to quantify the risk of this because it's, by the nature of like Bitcoin price movements, it's unpredictable to say, how often the system will be pushed into recovery mode. This isn't only dependent on the Bitcoin price, it's also dependent on the behavior of all line of credit holders. So if line of credit holders as a collective tend to be more risk tolerant, then they might in aggregate maintain relatively low collateral ratios, which would make the system more likely to go into recovery mode. As a collective in aggregate, they might also be relatively risk averse. And so the total collateral ratio might trend towards a much higher value, and therefore the system is much less likely to be pushed into recovery mode. It's impossible to predict this. It could change day by day depending on market conditions and who exactly is, putting money into the system. This is kind of an aggregation of like individual decisions that aren't coordinated in any kind of way. So it's just something that all of the line of credit holders, because recovery mode is a possibility, it's generally a good idea to maintain a healthy collateral ratio and to keep an eye on that collateral ratio and top it off as needed to protect your own line of credit and also to prevent the whole system from going into recovery mode. But you can't always rely on other people to act intelligently, or stuff comes up, so maybe they have to let it go. And so the system has these mechanisms for dealing with that kind of situation.
Guys, remember, request to speak if you have any live questions. Ask John himself. Otherwise, I'll keep on going through the list of people who submitted questions. The next one I had here was anonymous. It was, How will we be able to swap ZUSD for USDC/USDT, something that we can get into a bank account? Will the protocol be providing liquidity via Curve or some other AMM DEX where we can swap from ZUSD to something we can use in the real world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a proposal that has been submitted to the Babelfish community for their consideration and review. It's in their forum. It's under discussion right now, and we're hoping to get that to a vote sometime next week. And what this will do is it will add ZUSD to the XUSD aggregator so that ZUSD holders will be able to convert their ZUSD into XUSD on a one-to-one basis using the Babelfish aggregator smart contract. And of course, XUSD holders will be able to redeem their XUSD for ZUSD on a one-to-one basis as well. And through XUSD, ZUSD holders will get access to the full portfolio of fiat-backed stablecoins that and other liquid stablecoins that are already a part of the XUSD aggregator. So I think that the actual user experience for line of credit holders, zero users, will be that they create their line of credit, they get ZUSD, they immediately convert the ZUSD into XUSD, and then from XUSD, they'll be able to do anything in the Sovryn protocol that you can already do with XUSD. But you can margin trade with it, you could lend it, you could use it as collateral to get a loan, and you can withdraw stablecoins from the bridges. So in the portfolio of the Sovryn user interface, you're able to use the bridge to withdraw XUSD to USDC, USDT, DAI, Binance USD. I believe those are all the stable coins that are supported, and all of those stable coins are quite liquid on other chains as well as centralized and decentralized exchanges.
This is as informative for me as anyone else, really. This is great stuff. I had a question from Ryan here. He says, how exactly is the Oracle price computed that is used for liquidation? Can you point me to the exact code snippet, please?
I'll have to figure out how to get him a link to that exact code snippet. But yeah, I mean, it's using money on chain, and their smart contracts are open source, so you can dig around in their GitHub and you'll find that specific code snippet that you're looking for there. High level explanation is that money on chain has a native protocol asset called MOC, and users stake this MOC and basically apply to become an Oracle reporter to actually report the prices to the price feed contract. And the money on chain Oracle smart contract will take the top, I think it's 10 stakers who have applied to be oracles, and it will designate those as the oracles that are actually used for the price that ultimately gets confirmed on chain. And the smart contract will take the prices that these oracles are reporting, and it medianizes those prices. So basically it averages the prices together, medianizes them, really throws out the outliers, and the final result gets actually confirmed on chain and is what is used as the official or canonical price that smart contracts that rely on this oracle use as the quote unquote BTC USD price or whatever price it is that's being reported.
Okay, thank you. Guys, don't forget to submit your request to speaker. Be a speaker if you want to ask any more questions as we'll close out soonish. So request to be speaker if you have a chance. All right, got another question here for the sake of inclusivity. I'll ask it. It says here, when buy this coin? I am Korean.
Yeah, that's also a good question. So
yeah.
ZUSD from day one we're not going to be adding it to the AMM or really doing anything with it except for trying to get it added to the XUSD aggregator, at least on day one and for the duration of the zero beta. Because we've already, we being like the whole Sovryn and Babelfish communities have already put in a lot of effort to build a lot of utility for XUSD. We have relatively liquid AMM pools, margin trading, order books, lending and borrowing facilities, bridges, et cetera, et cetera. And so we figured, why try to reinvent the wheel and redo all of that work for ZUSD, which would then kind of put ZUSD in like a competitive position against XUSD, when we could instead just add ZUSD to the XUSD aggregator and like piggyback off of all of those great efforts. So that's what we decided to do. And so basically anywhere that you can currently use XUSD, you should be able to use ZUSD. Of course, the proposal to add ZUSD to XUSD is still just a proposal, and it hasn't been approved by the Babelfish community yet. But I'm hoping that this Q&A, the proposal itself, the discussion that we're having in the forum will all convince the Babelfish community that ZUSD will provide a great source of stability for the Babelfish aggregator and increase the value of the Babelfish aggregator overall by creating a new source of demand for XUSD. So I think it's a win-win, and I hope that the Babelfish community comes to agree as well. And so to the exact question, when buy, you should be able to buy ZUSD through XUSD once that proposal is approved and ZUSD is added to the XUSD aggregator, and people have actually created lines of credit and put the ZUSD into the XUSD aggregator. Other than that, I mean, what's one of the important characteristics of the Zero protocol is that all of the fees that are generated by the protocol, and specifically the borrowing fees and the redemption fees, though 100% of those fees are going to go to SOV stakers. And so if the question was not so much about, where can I buy ZUSD, but like, how can I get a piece of the action of like participating in, the economic upside of the protocol as a whole, for that, you would want to buy SOV, and you would want to stake SOV, because 100% of the Zero fees are going to go to SOV stakers. So if you're staking SOV, then you're going to receive a pro rata share of the protocol fees.
All right, bro. Yeah, guys, last chance if you want to ask any questions, just submit a request to be a speaker. I had one here. It said, what is the marketing plan for Zero post-launch?
That's a good question. I don't know that I'm the best position to answer that. I think the marketing team at Sovryn would be best to answer that, and so I would say that that would actually be a good question to ask at the community call tomorrow, since we'll have some folks from the marketing team on hand. In this right now, I'm wearing the hat of the product and tech guy, so I'm happy to answer product and tech related questions, but marketing related questions I'll defer to the very capable marketing team at Sovryn.
Like you said, community call will be at 3 p.m. UTC on Discord. So if anyone wants to join and ask more general questions outside of the Zero realm, we don't have any more questions at this point. Big thank you to John for answering all these questions, and it's been very informative for me at the very least. So again, guys, community call is tomorrow at 3 p.m. UTC on Discord, at Sovryn BTC on Twitter. Light, he's always a great source of information at Litecoin. So follow him if you get a chance and you're so inclined. Thank you very much, John Light, for joining us. Thank you to our listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone for the great questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Stay sovereign. Bye now.
Stay sovereign.